The silence in the living room on Christmas morning was not the peaceful hush of a holiday dawn. It was the suffocating quiet of a courtroom just before a sentence is read. My name is Elena, and at exactly 8 a.m. on what was supposed to be a day of joy, I was handed a receipt for my own life. There were no shattered ornaments, no raised voices, and no theatrical weeping. The brutality of the moment lay in its terrifying normalcy. My mother, Joyce, wiped her hands on a festive apron embroidered with snowflakes, turning to me with the casual indifference one might use when asking for a napkin. "We've sold the electric car," she stated, her voice devoid of inflection. "And we have liquidated your savings account. Your sister Bella requires a substantial down payment for her new apartment in the city." Before my brain could fully process the theft being presented as a fait accompli, my father, Robert, stepped forward. He didn't look me in the eye. Instead, he pressed a crisp, folded document into my palm. His voice was a low rumble, stripped of any paternal warmth, colder than the frost clinging to the windows. "You are to sign this as her guarantor," he commanded, not asked. "If you refuse, you can begin searching for alternative housing immediately." The air left the room. Nobody asked about the double shifts I had pulled at the tech firm for 3 years to afford that vehicle. Nobody acknowledged the nights I stumbled through the front door, eyes burning from exhaustion, while Bella slept until the afternoon, dreaming of a lifestyle she couldn't fund. There was no thank you. There was certainly no "I'm sorry." It was as if my labor, my financial stability, and my future had been nothing more than a reservoir they were waiting to tap for their golden child. Something inside me fractured. It wasn't a loud explosion. It was the quiet, clean snap of a dry twig in a dead forest. I didn't scream. I didn't plead. I didn't give them the emotional breakdown they were visibly bracing themselves to manage. I folded the document once, sharp and precise, and slid it into the back pocket of my jeans. Without a word, I turned on my heel, walked up the stairs, and began to pack. If the people who raised me could view me as nothing more than a walking ATM to be looted at will, then the walls around me were no longer a home, they were a cage. I walked out of that house 20 minutes later without signing a single line, but I left behind something far more dangerous than a signature. I left a note on the kitchen table, a delayed fuse that was destined to detonate my sister's reality. The wind outside was biting, slapping against my cheeks with a ferocity that felt grounding compared to the suffocating betrayal I had just escaped. I crossed the street, my vision blurring, ignoring the blinking festive lights and the artificial snow sprayed onto shop windows. My mind was a hive of static. I found myself gravitating toward a small, dimly lit coffee shop a few blocks away, my usual sanctuary after grueling work shifts. The barista, a kind soul who knew my order by heart, offered a tentative smile, but I couldn't find the strength to mirror it. I ordered black coffee, bitter and hot, and collapsed into a corner booth, the leather creaking under my weight. I unclenched my fist. The unsigned guarantor agreement sat on the table, a crumpled monument to their audacity. For a long, paralyzed moment, I just stared at it. My parents truly believed they could weaponize my shelter to blackmail me into indentured servitude on Christmas. I asked myself a question that I now ask you. Would you sign away your financial future just to keep a roof over your head and a house where your safety is conditional? Or would you walk into the cold, terrified but free, just as I did? When the tremors in my hands finally subsided, I pulled out my phone. The screen lit up, and the first notification at the top of the list made my stomach plummet through the floor. "Your online banking password has been successfully changed." I hadn't changed it. Panic, cold and sharp, spiked in my chest. My fingers flew across the glass, dialing the bank's emergency line. After 10 agonizing minutes of verification questions and hold music, the truth was laid bare. Someone had accessed my account the previous night using the IP address from my parents' house. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision born of desperation. This was a heist. They had planned this ambush, logged into my private accounts, and initiated the transfers while I was sleeping under their roof. The shock evaporated, replaced instantaneously by a white-hot clarity. This wasn't family helping family. This was financial predation. They had gone behind my back, stolen my security, and then had the gall to hand me a pen. Suddenly, the paper on the table didn't look like a favor. It looked like a loaded gun. I opened a new note on my phone, a habit I'd developed for debugging code. But this time, I wasn't tracking software errors. I was building a case. I logged everything: dates, timestamps, the exact amount missing, the intent of the password reset email, my mother's dismissive tone, my father's ultimatum. I transcribed their words verbatim: sign as her guarantor or find somewhere else to stay. If anyone ever tried to gaslight me, to call me hysterical or ungrateful, I would have the receipts. Have you ever experienced that pivot point where your brain switches from victimhood to strategy, where you stop asking, why is this happening, and start saying, okay, let's play? That is exactly what happened as my coffee went cold. I worked in tech. I understood digital footprints, audit trails, and the severe legal implications of unauthorized wire transfers. If my parents wanted to treat me like a business transaction, I would treat this like a corporate crime. I drafted an email to the bank's fraud department. The language was clinical, precise, and devastating. I stated clearly that I had not authorized any transfers, that my account credentials had been compromised by third parties known to me, and that I categorically refused to act as a guarantor for any loans associated with my sister. I attached screenshots of the password change notification and the time-stamped location data. My thumb hovered over the send button. A wave of nausea rolled over me. Was I really about to do this? Was I really about to designate my own parents as suspects in a fraud investigation? Then I looked at the banking app one last time. I looked at the 0 where my life savings used to be. That number represented missed vacations, cheap instant noodles, declined invitations, and years of self-denial so I could one day be free. They hadn't just taken money. They had stolen my time. The guilt in my chest withered and died. I pressed send. For the first time all morning, a grim, humorless smile touched my lips. That night, under the cover of darkness, I returned to the house one last time while they slept. I packed the remainder of my essentials, documents, heirlooms, clothes, and left a handwritten note in the absolute center of the kitchen table. I didn't write a manifesto. I chose a single sentence, calculated to inflict maximum panic. The next morning, that note would be the first thing they saw, and the catalyst for my sister's inevitable meltdown. My new reality was a rented room the size of a closet, furnished with a squeaky bed and a wardrobe that smelled of mothballs. But as I locked the door from the inside, a profound sense of peace settled over me. No one could enter without my permission. No one could drain my resources while preaching about family loyalty. The scent of fresh paint and cheap takeout felt holier than the scent of pine and betrayal ever had. I collapsed into sleep, half expecting my phone to detonate. When I woke the next morning, the digital storm had arrived. My lock screen was a chaotic mosaic of missed calls from mom, dad, and home. There were dozens of text messages from an unsaved number that undoubtedly belonged to Bella, ranging from pleading to abusive. And there, cutting through the noise, was one email from the bank. Urgent, account activity under review, and funds frozen. I scrolled through the family texts. They were a blur of manipulation. Where are you? We need to sit down. What is the meaning of this note? And my personal favorite from my father: this is not how adults handle conflict. The irony was suffocating. Adults handle conflict by stealing from their children and evicting them on Christmas? Would you feel remorse for walking away from that fire, or would you feel the relief of finally seeing the arsonists for who they were? The note I had left on the table simply read, "I have spoken to the bank's fraud department regarding the unauthorized transfers and the guarantor coercion. Do not sign my name to anything." That was it. No love Elena, no Merry Christmas, just a declaration of war disguised as a status update. It told them that the line they crossed was not invisible, it was legal. Around noon, I met Marcus, a close friend and colleague near the park by our office. Marcus was a cynical genius who could read server logs like poetry and people like cheap magazines. When he saw my face, pale and drawn, he didn't offer a platitude. He simply handed me a steaming cup and asked, "Who do we need to destroy?" I spilled everything. The car, the savings, the password change, the blackmail. I showed him the bank's initial response. Marcus's expression shifted from concern to a cold, focused fury. "Elena," he said, his voice dropping an octave, "they did this without consent. That isn't just messed up. That is a felony. That is identity theft and grand larceny." Hearing him say the legal terms out loud shifted something in my chest. It validated that I wasn't being too sensitive. I wasn't being dramatic. I was a victim of a crime. You don't have to sue them today, Marcus continued, leaning in. But you also don't have to lie down and be their doormat. You've been carrying them for years. How many times did you bail them out? Too many, I whispered. I could measure my life and canceled plans and paid bills that weren't mine. Later that week, my friend Sarah came to inspect my tiny room. She looked around the cramped space, nodding slowly. It fits you, she said. Not the size, but the vibe. It's yours. It's safe. When I told her about the scorched earth approach I'd taken with the bank, she asked a question that cut to the bone. What is the end goal here? Do you want them to hurt? Do you want them to be scared? Or do you just want them to stop? It was a profound question. What do you want when the people who were supposed to protect you become your predators? Do you want revenge, or do you just want your life back? I want them to know I'm not property, I said finally. In the days that followed, I buried myself in work. Coding became a refuge. Logic was predictable, unlike my bloodline. With every bug I squashed, I felt a little more human, a little less like a sentient wallet. But the nights were harder.
My mother's texts evolved into lengthy, guilt-laden monologues. My father's messages became short, sharp commands. Bella's were erratic bursts of panic. Then, one evening, the notification I had been waiting for arrived. The subject line, Update on Fraud Claim, Assets Frozen. I clicked it open, and the architecture of my revenge finally took shape. The bank confirmed they had frozen the disputed funds pending a full investigation. Furthermore, they had placed a fraud alert on my credit report, meaning any loan application listing me as a guarantor would be instantly flagged and rejected. In layman's terms, Bella's dream apartment was dead in the water, and my signature was now radioactive. I stared at the screen, visualizing the scene. My parents and sister sitting in a plush leasing office, smiling at a loan officer, only to watch the officer's face drop as the system flagged the application. I wondered who panicked first. Was it petty? Perhaps. Was it justice? Absolutely. A few hours later, a text from my mother popped up. Can we meet for coffee? Just us, please. Marcus and Sarah both advised caution. Go, Marcus said, but wear a wire, metaphorically or literally. Do not let them rewrite history. So I downloaded a high-quality voice recorder app, slid my phone into my breast pocket, and headed to the cafe. It was the same cafe where she used to take me after school to tell me I was the responsible one, the rock of the family. It was funny how quickly responsible translated to exploitable. She was already seated, clutching a mug she wasn't drinking. When she saw me, the waterworks began instantly. Elena, she breathed, half rising as if to embrace me, then thinking better of it. You look exhausted. I wonder why that is, I said, sliding into the seat opposite her. My voice was ice, masking the inferno of grief and anger churning inside. Sweetheart, about Christmas, she started, her voice trembling. Don't call it Christmas, I interrupted, cutting the air with my hand. Call it what it was, an ambush, a meeting where you and Dad announced you had stolen my savings and sold my vehicle, then threatened homelessness if I didn't co-sign a loan. She flinched at the word stolen. We didn't mean it like that, she whispered, leaning in. We were desperate. Bella, she needs this. The market is impossible. We thought you would understand. Understand what? I asked, my volume rising slightly. That my labor is just a slush fund for your favorite child? That my consent is irrelevant? Her lip quivered. You know Bella struggles more than you. She's not sturdy like you. She makes mistakes. We just wanted to give her a chance. By destroying mine, I countered. Did you hesitate before logging into my bank account? Did you pause for even a second to think, maybe we should ask Elena? Or was it easier to assume I'd just roll over like I always do? Silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. I waited for the pivot. This was the part where she usually played the martyr, talking about the sacrifices of motherhood. But she surprised me. I know it looks bad on paper, she murmured, but we are family. We never thought you would report us to the authorities. Fear flickered in her eyes. The bank called your father. They've frozen everything. They are asking about police reports.
Do you really want to send your parents to jail? Notice that, the shift from family to jail. Abusers only appeal to shared history when they face consequences. I didn't send you anywhere, I said, keeping my tone level. You walked there yourselves when you committed fraud. I just turned on the lights. Bella's loan is going to be denied, she said, a tear escaping. She's hysterical. She can't sleep. Is that what you wanted? I considered this. Did I want Bella to suffer? No, I wanted her to grow up. What I wanted, I said slowly, was to be treated like a daughter, not a credit limit. If your actions have costs, that isn't my revenge. That's mathematics. How do we fix this? She pleaded. Please, Elena, tell the bank it was a misunderstanding. Sign the papers. We will pay you back. I almost laughed. They had never paid me back for anything. Not the car payments I covered when Dad was laid off, not the medical bills. You want to fix this? I asked. Start by admitting what you did. Say it out loud. She stared at me, horrified. Say it, I pressed. We used your savings, she whispered. And we sold the car, she choked out. Without asking. We changed the password. We forced the ultimatum. My hand brushed the phone in my pocket. The recording was crystal clear. Thank you, I said. Now you can tell that exact story to the bank's investigator. Her head snapped up, betrayal written on her face, mirroring the betrayal she had served me. I stood up. I didn't promise to fix it. I promised to think about it. As I walked out, I saw the realization dawn on her. I was no longer their safety net. But while my mother was crying in a cafe, my sister was busy launching a PR campaign. A few days later, I was lying on my squeaky bed, doom scrolling, when I saw it. A post on Bella's Instagram. A photo of her, mom and dad in front of the tree, glowing with filters. The caption, "Some people forget the meaning of loyalty. Luckily, I still have the ones who stayed. Hashtag family first, hashtag grateful, hashtag no negativity." The comments were a chorus of validation. So true, babe. Forget the haters. Family is everything. That was me. I was the negativity. Not the theft, not the extortion, me. The audacity was breathtaking. Friends started DMing me. Are you okay? Bella says you abandoned them over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. The rage that had been simmering finally boiled over. I decided to bypass the town square and go straight to the global court of public opinion. I created an anonymous account on a massive online forum dedicated to family drama. I wrote it all down. The Christmas ultimatum, the hacking, the threats, the bank freeze. I didn't name them, but I laid out the facts with forensic precision. I ended with a simple question. Am I the jerk for reporting my parents for fraud after they emptied my savings? The internet's verdict was swift and brutal. Thousands of comments poured in. They called my parents criminals, narcissists, and financial abusers. They called Bella a parasite. They called me a hero for escaping. While the post went viral, Sarah suggested we escape to the mountains. You need to disconnect, she said. We'll go to a cabin, drink wine, scream at trees. We packed and drove. But on the drive, my phone buzzed incessantly. Bella, what did you tell the bank? My loan is rejected. Fix it. I typed a reply. I told them the truth. She exploded. You're ruining my life. You're jealous. You're doing this over money. Over money. As if it wasn't about respect, agency, and love. The next morning, in the crisp mountain air, the situation escalated. My mother sent me a screenshot of my anonymous post. It had been shared on a local community page. People were connecting the dots. Did you write this? She demanded. Are you trying to humiliate us? If the shoe fits, I typed back. Sarah looked up from her coffee. Are they freaking out? Ugh, I exhaled, feeling lighter than air. They are melting down. The mountains were beautiful, but the peace was fragile. My dad left a voicemail. I listened to it on speaker. His voice was tight, vibrating with suppressed rage. Madison, Elena, this has gone too far. The bank is talking about fraud charges. People in town are talking. Take down the post. Call the bank. If you keep pushing this, do not bother coming back. He wasn't sorry he hurt me. He was sorry he got caught. He told me to fix it or stay away, I told Sarah. What are you going to do? I looked at the horizon. I'm going to finish it. I wrote a list of non-negotiables, conditions, not requests. 2 days later, I walked up the steps of my childhood home. The decorations looked weary. I opened the door to the scent of cinnamon, which now smelled like a lie. They were in the living room. Mom with tissues, Dad with a clenched jaw, Bella with red eyes. "You came," Mom said, hopeful. "Thank God, we can settle this." "Sit," Dad ordered. "No," I said, remaining standing. "I'll stand." "You've turned everyone against us," Bella spat. "People are sending me your post, asking if I'm the leech." "And what do you tell them?" I asked calmly. "That your apartment was delayed because of a misunderstanding?" "Enough," Dad barked. "The bank is escalating. Do you want us to have criminal records because you couldn't handle a compromise?" "Compromise?" I laughed, a harsh sound. "You committed grand larceny. That isn't a compromise." He stood up, looming over me, a tactic that used to work. "Watch your tone. Watch your actions," I shot back. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't afraid of him anymore. He was just a small man who had lost control. I pulled an envelope from my bag and tossed it onto the coffee table. "This is from the bank. The investigation is concluded. The transfers are being reversed. The guarantor document is void. The loan is canceled." Bella lunged for the envelope. "You can't do this. I bought furniture." "You bought furniture with my future," I said. "Take it back." "You're jealous," she screamed. "You always were." "If your success was real," I said quietly, "you wouldn't have needed to steal it from me." Mom started sobbing. "We'll pay you back. Just stop the investigation." "The truth is out," I said. "The post stays. The report stays." I pulled out my list. "Here are the terms for my continued existence in your lives. 1, you never touch my finances again. 2, if you slander me online, I release the recordings. 3, no more legal documents. 4, if you prioritize her comfort over my safety again, I disappear forever." The room was silent. They looked at me, really looked at me, and saw a stranger. "Is this your revenge?" Dad sneered. "Making us beg?" I looked at them. The fear, the anger, the entitlement. "My revenge," I said, reaching for the doorknob, "was finally choosing myself. Everything happening to you now? Those aren't attacks. They're consequences." I walked out into the cold, closing the door on the warmth that was never really warm. The wind felt good. My story might be over, but the question remains for you. If your family betrayed you on the one day you were supposed to be safe, would you have the strength to burn the bridge while you were still standing on it, or would you let them pull you down? If you ever had to choose between your dignity and your bloodline, hit that subscribe button right now. Share your story in the comments. Let's talk about the moment you finally said enough, because sometimes the only way to win is to walk away.